the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited, in exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society. And now, in Disney.
Well, we welcome you all into another program touched by the tentacles of the Watchtower. We have Anne-Marie coming in from Northern California. Anne-Marie is a former Jehovah's Witness, and she's here with the Six Screens. She does a couple of programs here in the Six Screens, but this is one of them. Now, Anne-Marie, I know you're listening to me, and I know you can hear me. So, Anne-Marie, tell the audience what you're going to be talking about tonight.
Well, tonight we thought we'd bring up the subject of outrageous get-togethers. So I'm asking everyone to take the opportunity and share your experience or maybe a story that you've heard about some get-together when you were in the Watchtower, just a get-together that you know about of Jehovah's Witnesses that kind of turned not too good. In fact, I remember a story you told once, Rick. So that's what we're talking about.
Well, right. Now, these outrageous get-togethers, they can encompass a wedding, maybe a memorial service, a funeral for a witness, or just like a Super Bowl party you might have went to with the witnesses. Whatever it would be, we'd love to hear from you tonight, and we'll get your outrageous get-together story. So, Anne-Marie, I'm going to leave it to you. I'm here in the background if you need me. So go ahead and take the program away.
Thank you, my brother. Well, welcome in, everyone, to another wonderful and blessed Six Screen Saturday. Today is October 8th, 2022, and today on the show, touched by the tentacles of the Watchtower, which we all definitely were, some of us stung several times, we will be talking about outrageous get-togethers. I don't know about you guys, but I've heard some stories of outrageous get-togethers in the Watchtower. I think it's because a lot of them are just so wound, so tight, that when they have an opportunity to cut loose, it all comes out. And it can be a sad, scary, and crazy thing to see. Even worse to hear about, because you know how the gossip mill works in the Watchtower. Anyone have any story out there that maybe you would like to share? Or we can always talk about other things as well, but of course we always want to have a topic. And I'm just off the top of my head remembering, and I saw it on YouTube, and that's the one place that I didn't think I'd ever see an outrageous get-together of Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm like, seriously? I'm the wicked apostate, and you guys are doing that in the Kingdom Hall? Are you seriously kidding me? I don't know if you guys saw it, but I saw two different videos of two different situations where witnesses were cutting up in Jehovah's house, which I was always taught was sacred. One was a bunch of witnesses who had choreographed a dance to shake, 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 shake your booty. Really? Now, that was from Casey and the Sunshine Band in the late 70s. Shake Your Booty, dancing to that song in Jehovah's house. Yes, it was on YouTube. And the other one I saw was a group of brothers dressed up sexy as all get out in their nice little tight jeans and low cut and button down long sleeve shirt and cowboy hats and cowboy boots. And they were dancing so sexy on the stage of the Kingdom Hall. And to hear those sisters hooting and hollering like cats in heat, I was shocked. I'm a wicked apostate. I'd left the Watchtower many years ago. And I was shocked, absolutely abhorred, because I always heard that the Kingdom Hall was Jehovah's house. And here they are. But I've heard other stories. Wedding receptions are the worst, because a lot of times witnesses are so straight-laced, end up getting drunk and saying things and doing things that they shouldn't have been saying and doing. Anyone out there want to have a comment? Anybody have an opinion? Anybody heard a story? Anybody have an experience they want to share? Please star 6. We'd love to hear your memories and thoughts.
Well, Anne-Marie, I'll come in. I'll be the icebreaker here. So let's start off with a wedding I went to when I was living down in Florida. And you can hear me okay, Emery?
Oh, no, I hear you. This is the
Oh,
one I remember.
okay. Yeah, no, I've
I
got
was waiting for this
I
one.
got a few of them, but I'll be the icebreaker. And I went to a wedding in Florida. It was a young witness couple, handsome young man, beautiful girl. I'd say they were under 20, probably 19 and 20. I think the girl was 18, the man was 19. But anyways, I went to a wedding and it was really publicized as one of the best weddings you're ever going to go to. They were going to have lobster tails, and I guess they were going to have nice steak and roast beef, and everything was really pumped up to be the wedding of the century. So the word went out that we were invited, my former wife and I, and we went with another couple. And so we didn't eat all day. We were looking forward to the wedding of the century. And when we got there, it was at a beautiful big hotel in Tampa, Florida. And there were a lot of witnesses there. I think more witnesses showed up than really were supposed to. So there was a long line just to get in the door, we were out in the hallway just waiting in. There was hundreds of witnesses, it looked like. And so anyways, we're so hungry. I didn't eat all day. The couple I was with didn't eat all day. And we were, we're looking forward to beautiful, beautiful lobster and steak and roast beef. And all of a sudden they opened the door up and we're all standing in line for the buffet. When we got up to the buffet, there was nothing left, completely nothing. I mean, you were fortunate to get a piece of bread. That was it. It was so disappointing. And so many people were disgruntled. And being as hungry as we were, we didn't even hang around. We went out to a restaurant to eat. It was just terrible. And they were talking about that for weeks afterwards. But that was what I would call an outrageous get-together.
That is so sad, my brother Rick. I feel ashamed now, even though I'm not part of the organization anymore, but I feel ashamed thinking about my quote unquote brothers and sisters acting in such a selfish, greedy way, knowing that there were so many people waiting to eat and they're grabbing all they can. Because I'm sorry to say it, but I have heard so many times when witnesses hear free anything or whatever, they just go and they grab and they take and they don't think about anybody else but themselves. And I've seen it with my own eyes. It is a sad, sad shame. But I remember another story you said. You told me about another story, I think it was a wedding reception, where a young brother got himself into a pickle. Maybe he hadn't ever really drank before, and you kind of stepped in and helped him. Do you know which one I'm talking about?
Oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, it was at a wedding, and it was a nice wedding. It started off nice. And I would say there was at least 150, 200 people, Jehovah's Witnesses, at the wedding. Of course, non-Jehovah's Witnesses don't attend. But there was a couple of hundred people at the wedding, and we're all there. And there's an open bar. And obviously, whenever there's an open bar, that spells trouble. I like to have a couple of drinks, but sometimes what happens is people can drink too much, especially at a wedding. There's music and dancing and everyone's jumping up and down. And this one particular brother, I won't say how close he was to me, but he was close. And anyways, he was at the bar. I kept noticing he kept going up and going up and going up. And DG, I was concerned about him, but then I kind of forgot about it. So I had to walk out to my car to get something in my car. And who's on the ground outside the door of the site that we were having the wedding at? He's out there laying on the ground as drunk as a skunk, basically unconscious. So I didn't know what to do. I couldn't lift him up myself. So I went in and I got a couple of brothers. I said, hey, come out here. Let's not make a big scene out of this. But one of our brothers drank too much. He's out cold in the parking lot. So they came out and we put him in my car and I took him back to my house. I put him in the bed and he never knew what happened. The next morning, He woke up. Geez, Rick, what happened? I says, well, I said, you had too much to drink. He's saying, well, gee, did anybody see me? I says, no. I says, I made sure of that. I said, evidently you walked outside, you passed out. And I had a couple of brothers. They're not going to say anything. They're not going to rat on you. But I says, we brought you back to my house and you're in this bed here now. So that was something else, Anne-Marie.
You're such a cool guy, Brother Rick. You really are a cool guy. You know what scares me is if you hadn't found him, I mean, God only knows, but he could have possibly been run over, or somebody could have really made his life miserable. Wasn't he rather a young brother?
Yeah, I would say he was probably late 20s, and he was related to me. I'm not gonna say who, because they might be listening in, and I'll spare his embarrassment. But he was concerned, and he could have been run over. And I'm glad no other witnesses were outside at the time. But boy, we got him out of there fast, because he would have been disfellowshipped. And he was a ministerial servant, from what I remember at the time, and later became an elder. But they would have disfellowshipped him without any. If anyone saw him, any witness saw him, that would have been a disfellowshipping offense. He wouldn't have been cut any slack. Hey, let me tell you another story here. I'm looking at YouTube, and a person named Gary Sloan. Gary wrote in something. Let me tell you what he wrote here on the YouTube comments. He wrote, I remember in Albury, Australia, a group of elders got invited to a party, what they call a pee party, where they can get dressed up as a character, beginning with P. And the whole body of elders got deleted for dressing up as women. Now, I'm not quite sure how women starts with a P, or what that means. I guess a costume party, but all the elders, many of them, I guess, dressed up as women, and they got deleted. They all got deleted from the body of elders. What do you think of that, Anne-Marie?
Well, first off, it sounds rather sexist to me. I mean, what is being a woman something embarrassing in the Watchtower organization? We already know the women are second-class and third-class citizens. So if a pompous elder, who's basically a company man, I call them Gestapo enforcers of the law of the Watchtower, if they decided to cut loose and have fun and dress as women, I mean, if anybody remembers the movie South Pacific, came out in 1959, 1960, and it was based on the Second World War in the islands in the South Pacific. And there was a show they put on, and these guys, soldiers, dressed up as women. It was funnier than heck, and the women dressed up as sailors, as men. I mean, it was hilarious. What in the world is wrong with that? Why would they be disfellowship? I think that's totally sexist.
Well, I mean, let's face it, dressing up like a woman, it's not a good thing to do. It's like becoming a transvestite, a drag queen. So maybe they got them on those charges,
Oh, my goodness. What has this world become? But that is sad. I mean, when you hear about how they get treated if you get caught, quote unquote, I mean, I think it was such a loving, kind, and protective thing that you did for that young brother that you were close to when you rescued him from the parking lot grounds and took care of him. Because, I mean, they do not allow you to be human. They don't allow you to slip and make a mistake. It's not allowed. You have to be perfect. They can do anything they want, but you can't. If they can say, oh, we're just human, we're just imperfect men, but you can't be imperfect. I mean, what's up with that?
Well, the thing is, Anne-Marie, let's face it, Jehovah's Witnesses really don't want the witnesses to totally enjoy themselves. Well, they'll let you get away with a little bit of fun here and there, but they're an organization to keep you suppressed. They're an organization that could give two hoots of beans about you being able to do something different and feel good about doing something that's extraordinary. No. Stay within the boundaries.
Right. Hey, Rick.
You are so right. Go ahead, dear. Go ahead, dear.
Anyway, Anne Marie, it's it's Chris, and I had to call in when I heard.
Oh, Chris, I
coincidence.
missed you.
Well, by the way, I had a really good conversation last week with Linda, and she even had the courtesy to give me a personal call because things happen on the show. But the point I wanted to make was there's times when all of us can get upset when things are brought up, and I was guilty of a little too much ego. But the point I wanted to make in regards to what you were just saying, I was flipping through MeTV this morning, and I was seeing old reruns of Milton Berle, Flip Wilson, and it reminded me to go back to my hard drive and watch some old Tyler Perry movies. Now, on one hand, I might have a certain opinion about dressing up as a woman, but when Milton Berle did that, or Flip Wilson, it was just a way to just be kooky and funny, because back in the day you could do that. And I definitely don't agree with some of the modern social media and social and cultural ideas that are glorifying certain lifestyles, but all they were doing was just making comedy. And like Rick said, there was a time when I came in when I remembered they would have dress-up parties, and people would show up. There was even one elder that showed up as Aunt Jemima. Now, in the mid '80s, none of the witnesses even had an inkling that they were offended. It was just funny. Just like some of the sisters were dressing up as men and making fun of the fact that there's certain things about being a guy. We're goofy. We don't get a lot of things. We're kind of slow. But witnesses aren't allowed to evolve and grow. And I remember when I was talking to Pixie about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I was counseled when I still had long hair and was studying, because I showed up to a talent show on Friday night at a servant's home, and people did their funny little skits. And I brought my acoustic, and I played a classical song that was based on the Baroque period. So it was kind of that mix of classical and Mediterranean modes. And I was actually counseled because by playing a piece of music, and I played it well. And to me, I've been playing for 38 years. So playing well doesn't really mean anything. I wasn't doing it for ego, but I was actually counseled as a study. And they knew I was going to get baptized. They knew they didn't have anything on me. I wasn't messing with other sisters at the hall. I wasn't doing Christmas. I wasn't smoking. I wasn't doing drugs. But they had the nerve to tell me that the gatherings had to have a certain dignity, and that meant don't do something that could possibly make another active witness say, well, God, maybe if I get a guitar or learn the piano or the violin, God forbid, we all know the minute you learn a musical instrument, that's just a doorway to having illicit sex and orgies and probably doing drugs. It was so ridiculous, Anne-Marie, that they didn't even celebrate or even acknowledge that for someone to sit down and hear a piece of music and clap, they had a big problem with that. And to me, what a shame that if you have any kind of talent, or even if you start a business and you have the ability to make 6 figures within 5 years because you're sharp with business and you know P&L balances and how to make things work and who to hire and who's competent, they stifle all of that. And, you know, I think the 2 points I wanted to make was, whatever happened to just having fun at a party, and whatever happened to people saying, if you have a certain thing that resonates and you want to act or play music or just be the best you can be, the witnesses stifle all of that. And it's only okay to be the best at being an active witness, but for God's sakes, don't get into the arts. Don't be proficient at business, because it doesn't give them any foothold to tell you how to think or what to do. But I just wanted to chime in with that, because when Rick had brought up the fact that witness get-togethers aren't about having fun, and they're not about talent. It's about boring, humdrum situations. So I'm still listening. I'm going to let you go on. I didn't mean to blab on. Sorry.
Chris, it is a pleasure to hear you. I have missed you. I have very much missed you. You, of all people I've listened to on the show for, 12 years, 10, 12 years now, you have shown the most patience. I still remember how insanely patient you can be, and you always share something very valid and something very interesting and something worth chewing on. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say I appreciate that. Someone else is coming in. Anyway, thank you for your time, Anne Marie. I'm still listening.
Well, wait a minute. That somebody else just will hold on one moment. I just wanted to say thank you for playing that beautiful music. And they not only stifle, they stomp on you. If you have any kind of intelligence or talent, they stomp on you and try to make you feel guilty and bad for having a brain or for having talent. And thank you so much for sharing that, Chris. Thank you so much. Go ahead, caller. Just wanted to make that comment. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Ellen.
Ellen.
This is like my first time calling in. I've listened to you guys for the last 3 weeks or so. And I have a story. Now, I left the first time in 1972, and I was 18 years old. Well, my dad talked me into coming back home, so I thought I'd try that out. Well, it didn't all pan out the way he had planned, but I did have a fun time at a party where I got in trouble, but not as much as the hostess. And what happened is I had a boyfriend who was on the road. He was a long-haul truck driver, and his family invited me over. Now, I was about 19 or so, over to their house, and they had his married brothers and sisters and some other ones, and they were serving wine. So we were all drinking, and I drank too much and went overboard and was dancing with some of the married brothers and their wives. They were not witnesses, and they got all mad at me and all jealous. So then I did drink too much, and I couldn't drive home. They drove me home, and she said something mean to me. I was in the back seat. One of the daughters-in-law said something, and I whacked her, backhanded her with my fist. And she shoved me out the car. I had bruises the next day like crazy. Well, the next day I had the worst hangover I've ever had before that or since then. And my dad kept walking by my bedroom and saying, "Why? Why did you do that? Why?" Well, finally I said, "When you were in the Marine Corps, why did you get so drunk that your buddies had to put you up on the fence till the next morning?" And he shut up. So anyway,
You go, girl.
I know, I was bad. I went to the Kingdom Hall and I confessed to the elders what I did. And guess what? All they did to me was restrict some of my so-called privileges, which we know are obligations. And they went to my boyfriend's mother, who was serving the drinks, and put her on probation because she was serving to minors. And I was mortified, but of course that relationship didn't work too well, but thank goodness for that. And I left not too long after that for good.
Well, I'm so glad that the brothers didn't throw you to the wolves, but I'm just picturing your father, instead of having some sympathy for you being human. And by the way, females can get way more intoxicated a lot quicker than usually the average male. Because,
Yeah.
Fortunately, I'm not one of them. But I've never had a hangover in my life, so yeah.
I met a worldly man. Of course, I wasn't a witness from virtually then on. And I met a man who we've been married for 43 years. And I've been very ill, and he takes care of me. And I have the biggest blessings in my life. And I'm so glad I left. But I think the reason they didn't disfellowship me is because they were trying to keep everybody in because Armageddon was coming.
Most of those elders don't care if Armageddon's coming next week. If they're jerks, they will throw you out the door, and they don't care if Armageddon's coming and now you're going to die. If you get decent elders, you're lucky. I just wanted to comment real quick on your... Can I comment on your dad?
Yeah.
Could I comment on your dad just real quick?
Sure.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Ellen, but just picturing you suffering with this terrible hangover and trying to deal with that. Your dad's walking by your door back and forth every once in a while, just basically trying to shame you. All they care about, these witnesses, is you brought shame on the family. Now you made me look bad. And good for you to have the spunk to wake him up and say, hey, like Mr. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Ellen. Go ahead. Continue.
No, that's it. He was always right all the time. But my sister and my niece, they're still in. My sister is 75 now, I think. And she believes all the garbage. And I'm sorry, I know that we're supposed to try to love everyone, but I dislike my sister very, very much. So she's not a good person, and they pretend to be good people, but they treat their family like, crap.
Well, there's nothing wrong with seeing reality for reality, and it's truly a sad thing when a lot of these witnesses that think they're so good and so faithful and so spiritual and such good Jehovah's Witnesses and they're good standing, they tend to be insanely critical, terribly self-righteous, and they're arrogant. And that's a sad shame, because probably deep down, without that indoctrination, they might actually be decent people.
Yeah.
You've been out long? Have you been out long, Ellen?
Oh yeah, I left. That was I probably left for good in about 73 or 4. For good.
Wow, you're smart. You're way smarter than I was. Well, I really thank you for calling in. Did you have something else to share?
No, I was just saying that I know, like I said, I feel kind of guilty about not liking my sister. But, let me say, when I was a kid in school, we learned to play the violin. I learned to play the violin. And I got to play in one of the assemblies when they had live music. And, not too long ago, 4 or 5 years ago, my sister said to me, I was always jealous that you had a part in the assembly. And guess what? Now I'm going to get to testify, on the stage. It's just a small part. But all these years later, she tells me how she was jealous of me. How petty.
Great. Is there anybody else that would like to share or comment on what Ellen was saying?
Hi, can you
Hi,
hear me?
go ahead.
Oh, so I'm set to go because I didn't know what they meant by mute
Go
myself.
ahead, dear. Yeah, you're fine.
Okay.
You're fine. Go ahead.
Okay, this happened many, many years ago, and it was for a baby shower, a big baby shower with an elder's wife. And so what happened was everybody came. It was gorgeous, and everybody brought big, beautiful presents. And then the husband of the woman that was going to have the baby, he was an elder, he came and broke the baby shower up because he said it was like celebrating the baby's birthday.
Oh, for God's sake.
Yes. And I'm thinking, well, why did he let it get to that point? Why did he let it get so far as to come to the baby shower and break it up?
Yeah.
Why didn't he say
That's
something
terrible.
before? Yes.
Yeah.
So everybody they didn't know what to do. And the mom, the girl was pregnant. She was so
Poor
upset.
thing. I guess.
And everybody just kind of left, and they went home. And I was talking with another sister, in fact, the sister that threw it, I was good friends with her. And we talked about that for so long. We just could not believe it. And then that sister, they left they left the organization, but not shortly after that. And her husband was an elder also. And it was just so
Never heard that.
strange. Yes, I know. And that's one of the things that I always say is like, why is it okay to celebrate anniversaries, but not your birthday? And then this guy took it really far and broke up the baby shower, because I'd always have that question, why is it okay for the witnesses to celebrate people's anniversaries? So that's one of my stories.
They can't take away everything. If they took away everything, there would be a big, huge rebellion. There are a couple people that have been trying to comment, and I just want them to know I acknowledge them. Please continue. Wrap up your comment, please.
Okay, and then just another short one is just when it would be their anniversary, like a prominent couple in the Kingdom Hall. They had huge, huge parties and rented limos and picked up, people, their close friends, but they only invited the elders and their wives and maybe some ministerial students. Excuse me?
That's the way it is.
Yeah,
that's the way it is.
And I have other stories too, but
I'm sure you do.
Oh yeah.
Thank you so much. Please keep listening. I hope you do. There are a couple people that have been trying to speak up. Please feel free. *6. Like to comment on what you just heard the sister say about breaking up a baby shower of all things? What a pompous jerk.
Right. If no one comes in, I have another story.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
Can I just say that?
Okay, go ahead. Is this Pixie?
Hello?
Hi, go ahead. If you want to comment, please go ahead.
Well, I'll say something. I'm Nadine from California, and I had the story.
Hello. Go ahead.
There was also a group that they loved Star Wars, and so they were going to have this huge Star Wars party, and the elders found out about it, and they put an end to that, and they said it was demonistic and that you couldn't do that. So I mean, I've seen all kinds of different crazy things that happen and go on with parties or gatherings with the witnesses.
Well, I don't know. I think if we had known how insanely restrictive they are, they always have something to say about something. If it's fun, they're going to find something or some excuse.
Right.
A few people seem to want to come in. Go ahead, or else the sister will continue because she said she had a few stories. Does anybody feel that they would like to share or have an opportunity to speak? Star 6?
Anne-Marie?
Yes, hello.
Oh, I'm still here. This is still Ellen, but before I let you go,
Hi, Ellen.
I just want to say that when I was from a little kid, because I was a born-in, until I left, every get-together that we had, the elders always drank too much.
Come on. Is that it? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah.
I was just waiting for you to.
The elders always drank too much at every gathering. There was a certain clique of men, and they all go in the backyard and, whatever, the cookout or get together, and they were alcoholics. So, yeah, it's there.
It's okay. If you have an elder, if you're an elder, you have a free pass, it seems. And if you're an elder's son, you have a free pass. We've heard those stories.
Yep. I'm going to let you go and let everyone else talk, but thank you for letting me tell my story.
Well, you are so welcome, and please feel free to comment. We just want to make sure that everyone feels that they have an opportunity to share. So, just because I say, okay, is there anybody else, doesn't mean I don't want to hear from you. We all want to hear from you and everyone, Ellen. Ellen, we're so happy to hear you, and welcome to the Six Greens family. It's a pleasure to hear you come on.
Thanks. Okay, turn it back over.
Anyone else want to speak up? Anybody? Thank you, Ellen. Thank you. Okay, Star 6, anyone that feels that they want to have a chance to share their memory or experience or story, please feel free. Hi, how are you? Hello.
Oh, not too bad. That's a lot better than the past month and so forth. First of all, before I get into my comment, I got a hold of Jay. I had to go to BIA, the nursing home. He's having phone trouble. So I told him, I said, well, I'm going to call him back sometime and we'll work on it. He's not able to work his phone. And so we'll see if we can, I'll see if I can do or get somebody to help him work on that. But he's doing all right, holding his own. And he says hello to everybody. So that's about all I can tell you right now and so forth. And as far as, outrageous stories, I guess that they're all over the place. There's no end in sight to them in the Watchtower Society. I don't have one on weddings or anything, but there was an outrageous comment made by an elder to another person who had he's got chronic congestive heart failure and so forth and all that. And he's quite overweight. You know what this elder told him? He says, you brought that all on yourself. Can you imagine that, making an outrageous statement like that? The guy's got a medical problem, And so this elder comes along and says he brought that on himself. How is it that this individual, or any individual with congestive heart failure, how did they bring that on themselves? Watchtower Society, if you're listening, I'd appreciate they calling in and answering that question, because I, for one, have it. I did not ask for it. So take it from there. That's one of them. Another outrageous thing that goes on in the Watchtower Society, besides other things. And then you're not allowed to celebrate birthdays and so forth, but you can celebrate an anniversary. And birthdays, there are birthdays for children that they prohibit so much. There is no alcohol or wild parties that go on with them. and so forth. So it's kind of strange that this, and I wonder what, back years ago, they say when it comes to weddings, anniversaries, and that, we go by the book, Tell me more. Yeah, you go by the book and so forth. I rest assured and everything like that. Wild parties and that are prohibited according to the Bible and so forth. And Watchtower is always making an issue on, what's prohibited in the Bible and everything like that. And they want to make sure they enforce the prohibitions. They're just turning around and they're practicing what's being prohibited. So, nonsense.
Yeah, I remember a dear sister. She was a pioneer. She almost never got to do anything just to relax and have fun and enjoy herself. But her nephew was in a very popular band, and he played in this one particular very popular bar where you could, eat and dance. And he was in a band, and this was in the 70s, and it was during the time when Margaritaville, the song Margaritaville was a #1 hit. And they did the song so well that all of the people, the patrons at the bar, would always just play Margaritaville because they did it so well. And it was fun. And this pioneer sister would go there to hear her nephew and go with some other sisters and brothers. And they weren't doing anything wrong. They were having drinks, but nobody got drunk, and they were enjoying it. And the elders were after them like, oh, you got to be careful. You're hanging around with worldly people. But they couldn't actually tell them they were doing anything wrong. And then somebody said how they love the song Margaritaville, and they pounced on that, saying they were encouraging drunkenness and laziness, and told them that they couldn't go there anymore because it was disgrace to Jehovah, because in going there they were supporting them singing about getting drunk and being lazy.
Oh yeah.
Remember, that's one of the main lines.
That's a big joke about the Watchtower, talking about somebody who's being lazy and everything like that. Take a look over there in Warwick and so forth at that headquarters, and so forth. Talk about somebody being lazy. They never did a day's work in their life and everything like that. They lived off to somebody else all their life. So it's called white collar welfare, incidentally.
They can pick apart every detail, even when it's an innocent detail. They will pick apart anything about anybody. But can you even just disagree or just ask too many questions about their teachings? You're an apostate. You're going to be disfellowshipped. They can do anything they want and get away with it. But if you're a rank and file brother and sister and you don't have connections, you are dead meat if they have their hooks into you. It's really bad. Thank you so much for your comment, Ken. I appreciate that. And thank you for
you were speaking of songs and music before. Will you play that? Will you please play a song for the Watchtower Society? It's called "Bye Bye My Baby."
Okay. Was there somebody else that was trying to comment?
Hello.
Yes, I can barely hear you, dear.
Oh, hello. How about now?
There you are. Turn up your volume or speak closer to your microphone, please.
Okay, I'm right.
There you are. Hi, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Nice to hear everybody. Just a thought that the men, the elders, I use that term a little too loosely. The elders are actually arranged to basically spy on each other and to make sure that they're all doing what they're supposed to be doing. So basically, they're like children ratting on each other, or making sure that the other one's going to do what they were told to do. They're set up that way, number one. So they go out of their way to make themselves look, I guess you would say, more righteous or more, lawful than the other, number one. And number two, the elders are all males, but there's very few men among them. And and that's about it there.
Well, I appreciate your pointing that out, dear.
Oh,
It's very hard to be. I'm sorry,
Fran.
go ahead.
This is Fran.
Hi, Fran.
Hi, just to give an example of what Joe was saying, we went to a graduation party, and it was a big graduation party, and one of the elders dressed up as a rabbit or a bear or something, and he was having a good time, and everybody was having a good time. Well, the CO heard about it, and the elder was called out for that. And, he was told never to do that again. Elders are not supposed to be, making fun of things or dressing up or playful. And they said that that's how the congregation will remember you. And he was just a nice, lovable brother, just having a good time, and everybody was having a good time. But the CO put the kibosh to that.
That is so disgusting. And isn't it the nice, good elders that get picked on?
Oh, yes.
I appreciate your sharing that so much. Go ahead, brother. Hi, this is Chris. Hello.
It is. But after hearing the other calls come in, I wanted to make 2 more points, and then I promise I'm going to let you get back to your format, okay? Can you hear me?
Right here, Chris. Go ahead, dear.
Oh, okay, the point I wanted to make was the one thing that was interesting about my experience not being raised a witness, when I started to study, I remember, when the brother would come into the home and I would say, okay, I didn't have the internet because it was 1985, but I went to the library and got information about the Protestant church and the Catholic church. And at that time, a lot of fundamentalist religions that were starting to get a stronghold within the American consciousness. And I was praised that I went to the library and found out about the history of the Protestant church, the Catholic church. The point I wanted to make, the first one was, the minute I became a witness and kept that inquisitive nature and said, okay, if I'm sitting here in 1985 in the Live Forever book, in the United in Worship book, and if you remember in the late 80s, the Prince of Peace was a big book that seemed to be their main propaganda about inciting paranoia about Armageddon being so close, because they had, pictures of Jesus as this righteous king that was going to kill everyone that wasn't a witness. The witnesses were buying into this. And I started to say, okay, according to the resources I had, according to what the witnesses say in 85 or 87 or 89, I have an issue because they're not proving true to what the witnesses claimed was true in 85. And I said, how do I rectify that? And basically, I was told to shut up. The same dynamic that I had when they praised me for exposing the Catholics and Protestants, they didn't want to hear it. And and the funny thing about religion, I can understand if a religion, let's just say Christianity is true. I understand Peter failed. I understand the first century Christians failed because they were imperfect. I don't have a problem with that one bit. I do have a problem if someone says something outright, because it seems like the witnesses don't like the scripture that says, serve the Lord your God with your whole body, mind, and soul, because that includes your mind and that includes knowledge. And I understand knowledge doesn't mean anything unless you apply it. And then when you apply it, you get understanding and you find out how to be functional. But Anne-Marie, they told me basically, stop studying so much. When you give a comment at the hall, don't go on and give a reference to what Russell wrote or Rutherford or Knorr or Franz. And that really bothered me. The one other point I wanted to make when Ellen was talking about going to a party and imbibing too much, here's something else I learned before I let you go. And like I said, I love the fact that this show has the format it does, but I wanted to make one more point, okay? When I was appointed a servant, I was probably within a year, because the brothers kept telling me, you're tracking to become an elder. But at the same time, I was looking at what's going on in the hall, and with just the witnesses, not only psychologically, but emotionally, and I was starting to see the dysfunction. Now, here's something interesting, Anne-Marie. I used to have most of the parts on the service meeting, which meant every time there was an announcement, when they go through that first part, brother so-and-so has an announcement. I was the kind of guy that would keep notes on every meeting. And I found out after 3 years that 9 out of 10 witnesses disfellowshipped weren't getting disfellowship for immorality by going out into the world. They were busted banging boots with other active witnesses, not inactive, not disfellowship, other active witnesses. And I was thinking, if the world is such a big, scary place, why are most of the witnesses getting busted for having sex with other people while they're both still active? And we're talking, Anne-Marie, servants, elders, pioneers, which, why can't they just acknowledge? Because when I look back and I think, like I said before, when I studied, I have and had, natural things. I can't go to the hall without acknowledging a good-looking sister when I'm a teenager, because guys think about that a lot, but I never acted on it. Why were the witnesses acting on it with other active witnesses, but they were telling me, well, you have to be careful about going out with your sister or family or friends, shooting pool or playing music, which I did since I was 14. I never had one encounter where I met a woman playing music. I never went to a bar playing pool and had an immoral experience. But I'm thinking, why is it 9 out of 10 witnesses that get busted are doing it with other witnesses? And I think it's because when you go to the meetings and you get to know people, you lose, because I believe every human being should have a certain dynamic of privacy where everyone doesn't know your business, but when you're a witness, everyone knows everything about you, because when you're a witness and you're not happily married, the elders know it, the servants know it, the pioneers know it. So if someone's looking to make a move immorally, it only takes a matter of, I've seen people do it within a couple weeks. And I'm thinking, if this is the truth, how come so many witnesses don't appreciate the fact that most people get disfellowship for immorality? They don't get disfellowship for smoking. I found out, I think 1 out of 20 people when I came in got disfellowship for smoking. But I'm just thinking, this whole thing about bad association, spoil useful habits, how come 9 out of 10 people busted for immorality are doing it with other witnesses? Because they're miserable. And they don't know how to go home and have the confidence to say, okay, if I want a good relationship, I'll be the best wife or husband I can be. But if you just toss that out the window and you accept the first thing thrown your way, where's the spirituality? And where's this clinging to what's right?
Right.
My whole thing with that was the very emotional dysfunction in the witness dynamic opens people up to sexual dysfunction and the inability to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do and why. So I hope I didn't ramble too much, but I wanted to make that point because, like I said, 9 out of 10 people, other witnesses.
No, it makes a lot of sense. And as I said before, you always bring up something valid and something to chew on, and I appreciate that, Chris.
Okay. Anyway, I'll let you get back. I just wanted to make that point because that was something I learned in the late 80s that kept perpetuating as I became a witness till I became inactive in 98. So,
well, thank God for that. But at least you were perceptive, and a lot of us were trained to just swallow everything and think the way the Watchtower tells you to think. And even when you see something wrong, we're taught by our programming to just reason it away. Oh, they're just imperfect, or, oh, Jehovah will take care of it, or I have no right to judge, or I'll be judged. You know, I mean, they'll talk about, why do you judge your brother with a splinter in their eye when there's a raptor on your own? So even when you see or hear something your conscience says is wrong, your Watchtower cult indoctrination tells you to just kind of blow it off. So you were seeing things that were probably not evident to others.
Hey, Ben,
someone
here,
trying to
Canada.
speak? Go ahead. Hi, Ben. What's up?
Hi, how are you?
Good. What's on your mind, my dear?
Oh, yeah, we're up here in northern British Columbia, Canada. My wife Debbie and I, we left Jehovah's Witnesses about 3.5 years ago. We've been listening to your show.
And, congratulations. Welcome.
Here too. Yeah, well, it's been a tough one. I mean, you know, we started out just asking too many questions, and here we are. But, yeah, anyway, we wanted to call in because this discussion about, you know, elders' behavior and the way people rat each other out, you know, that's been the story of my life. That's the way they create an atmosphere of fear. That's what they do, really. And it's too bad. It's quite a situation. The last couple of years before we left, I can tell you, this organization is nothing like the organization I grew up in. But, you know, I hear some of you folks, you left in the 70s. Well, you know, I was born in 71. I wish I would have never got involved with Jehovah's Witnesses, but I did, and it's caused a lot of problems for our family. So, yeah, we just wanted to call in and see if we could connect, but we appreciate everything you folks are doing down there.
Well, Ben, it is a pleasure to hear you, and I hope you feel very welcome into the Six Screens family, because we have all had our long, sad, lonely trek in the Watchtower, and we've all been beaten down, and we've all, you know, been to where we were believing everything and serving faithfully and believing the hype about love and God's organization and the truth and all the cult programming that we were subjected to. And every one of us at some point somehow had to face the fact that this was not the truth and it wasn't God's anything. It was a very, very controlling, tyrannical, iron-fisted cult.
Yeah. You know, and I can say that true. Like in my time as a Jehovah's Witness, I was baptized for 30 years, but I'm 51 now. I was born and raised a Jehovah's Witness. And I've been through the judicial process 5 times, if you can believe it or not. And most of the times it was because, you know, I was always running to the elders, ratting myself out because, you know, my conscience bothered me so much. They had this drilled in my mind so much that if I wasn't honest, you know, I wouldn't survive. This is the whole thing. They really ruin people's minds. That's what I feel anyway. You know,
it's true. You're exactly right. Well, it's part of the programming. I'm sorry, Ben, go ahead.
These judicial meetings that they have too, you know, unless you've been through it, you don't really appreciate, you know, how hard it is emotionally on a person, especially if you're mentally in and you believe that, you know, your relationship with Jehovah is at stake. You know, one time, this was back in Ottawa, Canada, I was disfellowshipped for smoking pot at the time. I went to the elders and told them I was using marijuana. At the time, I was depressed. Anyway, they disfellowshipped me. When they said, you know, Ben, finally, the last meeting, they said, we're going to disfellowship you. The one brother, he says, Ben, we're going to need your blood card, he said. And so I took my blood card out and gave it to him. But it was just like these guys that had been my friends weeks before were just throwing me out. And like you guys talked about it earlier, if they really believed Armageddon was coming, I mean, you'd think that they would try a little harder to keep someone in. I mean, it was just smoking pot. And I went to them and said, look, I want some help here. But yeah, it's not a support group, you know. So anyway, we appreciate the show. We're going to try and call in some more now. We just tested this phone number out tonight to see how it would work, you know, but we appreciate the show. There's a lot of hurting people, and I think there's going to be a lot more hurting people as this thing starts unwinding, you know. People are starting to wake up, I think. But it is a shock to just wake up and realize your whole life has been wasted believing in a dream that's just not true. That's the problem. So I'm going to let you go.
Well, we were living a nightmare and being told it was a dream, that it was a good dream, and it was a nightmare. And then we're wondering what's wrong with us because we're miserable, but we're supposed to be the happiest people on earth. Something's wrong with us because we need to pray more and study more.
Yeah, and that's not, you know, when you say that, you know, everybody listening knows that's not true. Jehovah's Witnesses aren't the happiest people. They're all on medication. They're all depressed. They're all on alcohol. I mean, how else could you not be on that? Because you're living in this organization where, you know, the fear of Armageddon at any moment, and most of these people, half their kids are disfellowshipped. They haven't talked to them in years. It's such a dysfunctional organization. It's toxic. The whole thing is toxic. And then they wonder why the people are all depressed, you know. They've been fed fake things for years, you know. It's shameful, really. You know, I listen to everybody calling in. It's really shameful. But anyway, we'll let you go and keep listening. We appreciate you being around.
Well, Ben, I want you to know that you are so welcome, and so many people are listening to you, and more people will be listening to you when this is posted in the archives and on YouTube, because it's going up there. Thank you so much, Ben. I hope you keep listening, and I hope to hear from your wife as well. And congratulations on your freedom.
You bet. Goodbye now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. There, a sister who wants to speak up? *6, the lines are open. First come, first serve. Anybody have a point, a thought, a comment, an experience, a story? Okay, I guess we've heard it all. Let's see if we have time here. We're doing really good on time. How are we doing on time, my brother Rick?
We got about 10 minutes, Anne Marie, about 10 minutes.
Well, okay. I can't think of any outrageous things that have happened, except that when I used to attend a book study when I was staying for the summer in Woodland Hills, California. Now, Woodland Hills in California is a suburb of Los Angeles, and it's in a very affluent neighborhood. And I remember being at the Kingdom Hall, visiting this Kingdom Hall in Woodland Hills, and I was just, you know, we were poor. We grew up in the projects of San Francisco. We were barely surviving on welfare. My mother was very ill. We had to take care of her and do all the housework, the cooking, the shopping, everything, and take care of our sick mother. And, you know, we were dirt poor, and I'm talking about roaches blowing in the wind poor. Poor soap, you have no idea, I swear to God. We never had chicken, we never had potatoes, we never had vegetables. We were poor. And we were visiting this very affluent congregation, and my brothers and I are sitting in the audience, and this brother at the podium is talking about the scripture where it says, if a man does not want to work, neither let him eat. And this brother had the nerve to say, regarding people like my poor mother on welfare, he said, yeah, I sure wish I could just lounge around my pool all day sipping my iced tea while the money rolled in every month. He was talking about people on welfare who were struggling like my mother and us kids. And I thought that was so horrible. But the worst of it is when we went to the book study. This is back when they had book studies on Tuesday nights at different people's houses. I remember we would be studying whatever the story was, you know, whatever the study was. And then after the final prayer, okay, brothers, anybody want to stay? You know, we've got plenty of beer, wine, scotch, whatever your pleasure is, pool tables in the back. And everybody's out in the back drinking, laughing, carousing, and playing pool, and not one mention of the study. And my brothers and I are just staring at them because even though we belong to a very poor congregation, there was a lot of love and love for Jehovah and love for the ministry. And now I get exposed to people in the Watchtower with a lot of money and affluence, and they're jerks. Anyway, that's just my experience. I couldn't wait to leave that place. Anybody have any comments on anything? I'm just, taking up time here. Anybody want to comment? Please, hello.
Hi, honey. How are you?
I'm good. So good to hear you.
I probably said this before, so please, you've heard it. I'm sorry to say it again, but Rick said I should mention it. I had a large wedding, and to show you how selfish some witnesses can be, my first husband, their family invited over 350 people to our wedding. And then it was a total of 500. So it was a huge wedding. Well, guess what? 500 extra people showed up at the wedding. And they asked me, this was in 1978, so they asked my dad for $1,000 before they would ever serve any food because there were too many people there. So what was $1,000 would be in 1978? What would you say it would be worth now? I mean, what were they probably asking him for? Maybe $3,000 or $4,000?
Oh, I'm thinking more like $5,000.
Okay, so $5,000. My dad had to sign over a check right away. They had to validate the check, and then they'd serve the food. But that just shows you, the witnesses we really didn't have a lot of parties or things he could attend. So when there was a wedding or a baby shower or any kind of a talent show, a lot of people would show up just for the sake of having some kind of entertainment, music, dancing, or whatever. But my dad was like, who are these people? Because my parents weren't witnesses. My dad was, I don't even know who's here. He says, I'm paying for all these. He didn't want to tell me at the time because, it was his only daughter's wedding and, he wanted things to go well. But that was just plain rude. Sometimes witnesses didn't think about were they rude or not. And I think it was shortly after that they had Watchtowers where they said you had to appoint a master of the feast. Do you remember that?
No, not offhand. I'm sorry, Susan.
Well, they did shortly after because the weddings were such a problem because so many people were showing up without being invited. They just felt that all weddings should be open weddings. Because maybe that's what it was maybe 25 years before, but not then. And so people were just taking advantage of any kind of entertainment they could have. But after that, if you had a wedding, you had to appoint the master of the feast who would take care of who was coming in, who was coming out. Did they have their invitation to come for the dinner or not? It just got more complicated. So that's my one story there.
Susan, you're always so nice when you tell a story about greedy, selfish witnesses. You're always so kind about it. They were jerks, and I want to say a-holes because that's what they were, but I'm not supposed to say that because I don't want your husband to ban me. But this is so typical. In a worldly wedding, there is something called social mores, decorum, manners. You don't do that. In a worldly setting, people have class. And it's embarrassing when you crash a wedding because that's essentially what these people did to your wedding, your reception, that your poor father basically was robbed of his money, his hard-earned money. And they just took. It's like anything they can take, they get. Remember Lori McGregor's story about how she would grow a huge garden every year, work so hard while she worked secular job, while her husband laid around on his behind, and the only thing he did to earn money was to make moonshine, and the elders were some of his best customers, and he just laid around while his wife working her tail off to pay the bills and buy the food, and plus put this garden together. And while she's at work, these witnesses, sometimes 2 and 3 motorhome full, would come and use her washer and dryer, her soap, and do their laundry, and to use her shower, use up all her clean towels. And then this one time they said, "Oh, what a beautiful garden. Is it okay if we have some?" "Oh, sure, take all you want." And they used her laundry baskets and cleaned out her entire garden, because she used to grow the garden and then can food to try to get them through the winter. Can you imagine that? That's exactly what happened at your wedding reception. Selfish, greedy witnesses. And I'm sorry, this is just so typical. So sadly typical. I'm sorry, Susan. I'm so sorry they did that to you.
You know, I find too, Anne Marie, that when witnesses leave and become like us, apostates or whatever, witnesses don't have a lot of social skills. You're not taught a lot of social skills in the Kingdom Hall. So when they're rude or do just unbelievable things that a normal person would never do, I sometimes give them a little bit of a pass, because the Watchtower does not teach you social skills or any kind of social mores or whatever. You don't learn that in the Watchtower. And when you're around people, the rest of the world, worldly people, you learn that. But you're so isolated in the Kingdom Hall that you don't learn these things. So they all show up at a wedding, they all, whatever. So that's just my take on it.
No, your take is quite clear, and it's reality. You're so right. Social mores are those unwritten but understood rules of social behavior. For example, when you walk into a restaurant and you're being led to your table, if you pass someone that they're sitting at a table and you know them, social mores dictate that you smile and say, "Hello, how are you?" Social mores also dictate that the person at the table you're saying hello to invite you to sit with them. Social mores also dictate that you, the one passing by the table, decline politely, because then the rules of social behavior have been acknowledged. Now, if the person at the table really wants you to join them, they'll insist, and then you'll feel that you're truly welcome. That's just understood in normal social behavior, just like when you walk into an elevator. If there are people, you nod, you look at them very quickly, nod acknowledgement, and then what do? You press the button, or they ask you to press the button for whatever floor, and then what do you do for the ride in the elevator? You stare at the numbers. You don't stare at other people. That's rude. It's just understood. But in the Watchtower, we're not taught social mores. We're not taught decorum. We're taught, serve the Watchtower. Make sure you're in good standing. Make sure you're polite. Make sure you're always seen as spiritually strong. They don't know how to act like an adult, because you're not supposed to think for yourself, and you're not supposed to understand anything. And then when they have a chance to have fun, they're like greedy, spoiled, undisciplined children with no sense in their head.
I agree with you there.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Susan. And Susan, I am so sorry. So sorry that happened to you. I mean, I had a quote unquote worldly reception. I got married 7 years ago next month. And everybody that loved my husband and me, they took care of the venue. They did all the work. Somebody made the cake. Everything was literally provided for us. And when the doors opened, we saw everybody who was there at our reception with their champagne glasses raised to welcome my husband and me. We didn't have to put out a penny. Everybody did it for us and paid for everything. And this is not what happens at a witness wedding. It's what can I get for free? Ooh, I hear there's going to be good food. Let's go. Oh, yeah. Hey, you want to come too? It's so disgustingly selfish. I'm so sorry that happened to you, Susan.
Well, what I feel bad for is what's hard when witnesses first leave. They leave this cult-like organization. they have to learn how to behave in real life. And that can be a hard thing, and it can be daunting and a little scary. And that's why sometimes people don't want to leave, because they have to face this. They have to learn how to do this. And they might even be older adults, and they have to learn this. And it's hard to learn how to fit in. So I give everyone a double pat on the back for leaving the Watchtower, because it is difficult. And I certainly appreciate all the work that you do to try and make a go of it.
Thank you so much. It was so hard coming out of the Watchtower because I didn't know that I didn't have social skills. I'll never forget when I was sitting I was invited to a very small dinner party, and I'm sitting at the table and all the other adults are having normal social chatter. And I remember listening to the lingo and what they're talking about, and I had no idea what they were talking about and what I could add to the conversation so I wouldn't feel like a complete idiot. And I finally thought of some simple comment, and the lady sitting next to me looked at me like kind of surprised and almost like she was embarrassed for me. And she said, "You know, Anne Marie, you don't look like you're stupid, but you kind of are, aren't you?" And I never forgot that. That stung so bad because she wasn't making fun of me. And it was a simple, honest acknowledgement that I was absolutely stupid as far as social behavior went. I had to learn. And it was really, really rough. And I still don't feel equipped in a normal social situation. I always feel like I'm kind of out in the middle of no man's land, like I don't know what I'm doing. It's ridiculous. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to go on.
This is the Pastor Babe, Linda King.
Hi, Linda.
So, speaking of social skills, so my dad's second wife was really upset with me because I didn't give her a thank you card or a thank you card. I wasn't clear about it, and I remember my dad telling me, and I'm thinking, but I told her thank you. I did not know that this was the thing to do. Like, to me, why would I give somebody a thank you card when I just said thank you? That seems odd to me, but it's a social thing to do. Like, that's the thing to do. But I was not taught this. So she was upset with me, and I was devastated that me verbally saying thank you wasn't good enough. So we have to learn these things really the hard way. It's just odd to have to learn these things.
Yeah, you're so right. Thank you so much for bringing that up. A thank you card is one of the most basic things I'll say in old school, in my day, when we were growing up, all girls from about the age of 9 or 10 were given a box of nice little cards, blank cards, usually very pretty on the outside, with an address book and a pen and stamp. And they were taught from very young, as I was, that you send a little note, it was so nice to see you, or thank you for this, whatever. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you say, because you're always supposed to send that card, but you're not taught that in Watchtower. And thank you so much for bringing it up.
I didn't have a party growing up, so when I was an adult, I was facing this and having absolutely, like, I'm listening to you talk about this little address book and a nice, paper. I'm thinking, wow, people did that. So we just have to learn along the way. We just have to learn along the way. So thank you for letting me share that.
Excuse me, somebody is making a lot of background noise. Somebody, please mute your phone, please. I beg you. Thank you. You know what, Linda, I have to take the opportunity to say thank you so much for the incredible job you do every Saturday night, being there for people. And thank you so much for being so kind to our brother, Chris. You said that you were kind to him and that you called him. And thank you so much. Everybody still there, or I heard a lot of beeping? I was going to say that I didn't realize you're supposed to send a thank you after a job interview, but a dear friend of mine in an ad agency taught me that. And when I make the quip that the public library saved my life, I mean it in many ways. And one way was to read a basic etiquette book, because since we didn't have birthdays or holidays of any type, we didn't learn a lot of these group dynamics and things that even people do one-on-one with another human.
Yeah, Pixie.
Yeah, there's basic social etiquette, and then there's something called business etiquette, and you always have separate thank you cards for business thank you cards. And whenever you have an interview, you always make sure that you know the person that you spoke with, and you make sure you know what their position was, and of course the address and everything. And as soon as you can, I mean, like sometimes as soon as you leave the interview, write out the thank you card. You know, I appreciated the time, you know, whatever, short and sweet, and you mail it right away. It's just basic business etiquette. And you always have a separate address book for business, because all of those contacts, no matter how short and sweet they might be, you always want to acknowledge and honor them. You never know where it's going to lead. And thank you for bringing that up, Pixie, because a lot of people don't understand there's a difference between social etiquette, social mores, and business etiquette. If you have an interview and you don't send a thank you card, it does not look good. No.
Right.
Did somebody want to come in?
Yeah, Anne-Marie, I'll chime in on the etiquette thing. Check this out. You're a religious you're a religious organization, and Jesus talked about etiquette, and he said everything that needed to be said by saying treat other people the way you want to be treated, and there's more happiness in giving than there's in receiving. So explain to me how a religious group cannot teach its members that when you're talking to people, why can't you just be happy and being a good listener? So if somebody wants to talk about a topic that you have no interest in, etiquette, according to Jesus, would be to treat other people the way you want to be treated. So if you want to talk about a topic that, say, somebody is not interested in, wouldn't you want them to at least, like, give you 5 minutes or 10 minutes, just acknowledge you? You know, so it just seems funny that all the things that you're talking about with etiquette, Jesus addressed this, and we're talking about how a Jehovah's Witness religion wouldn't even teach this basic etiquette to its members. I mean, this is so basic that when you go somewhere, and I know I see this all the time. When people talk about things that I have no interest in, I just remember that Jesus says, you know, be nice to them, be happy, be a happy giver. Give them 5-10 minutes of your time. Let them talk, let them ramble, and then the person is happy, and then the person doesn't know why they're happy. They're happy because I listen to them. But this is something that I scratch my head. I think, wow. You're a religious organization, Watchtower. How come you couldn't teach these things? They're so basic. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, well, they just care about having totally programmed, highly functioning, obedient, don't think about it, don't ask questions. They just want those servitude Watchtower drones properly programmed.
Right.
Just a comment.
And the last thing I was going to tell you about when you were talking earlier with
Hold on, brother. Okay, go ahead. And then there's a brother that wants to comment too. Go ahead.
You were talking. A guy called about how all the sexual relations that are happening within the Jehovah's Witnesses and the disfellowshipping. Well, the point is there's a phrase called familiarity breeds contempt, and this is why like a lot of these sexual relations happen at work or happen in a closed area because it's familiarity breeds contempt. So we're not supposed to, like, for example, in my opinion, in church, we're not supposed to see each other that regularly. Like once a month, once every other week is good enough. When we start forcing each other, forcing everybody to meet regularly on a regular daily basis, familiarity will breed contempt, and nothing good things don't come out of it. In my opinion, God only wants you to see your mother every day. Call your mother every day. But other than that, you don't need to be talking to people every day, your friends. That only bad things are going to happen when you do that. It's good to have that space, and that same thing also with worship. When we worship God, we don't have to worship God together every day. That's not good. We come together like in the Bible times. Some of those gatherings were every year, every 7 years. Well, the point is that we need to have that space, and that's why you have the problems in Watchtower, because familiarity breeds contempt. It's not healthy. Having a nice space between us is healthy. Seeing each other once a month is healthy, or every 3 months is healthy. Not 3 times a week.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for bringing that up, brother. That's an interesting point. And all of those that do have problems with self-esteem and insecurity, and then they have control issues, the ones that are the most unhealthy mentally and emotionally, always seem to deal with their feelings by picking on others and criticizing others and, kind of talking down. And it's just sad, because when you're emotionally and mentally healthy, you don't feel the need to pick apart other people and just pick anything and everything about them. It's just so, so sad and sick. And you're so right. The more you're together, the more you're exposed to those that do have these issues where they tend to be judgmental and, call you in front of the elders or complain to you about, your behavior or something you said behind your back. It's sad.
Amen to that. The elders have counseling experience to be in a position of authority, but a good book is called Boundaries.
I'm all about those boundaries.
Hello.
Anne-Marie? Yeah, okay, we have a brother and another sister. Can the brother speak since he pulled in first? Go ahead, brother, and then the sister.
Hello.
Go ahead. Thank you, Pixie.
Hi.
Okay, that was me. That was me, Anne-Marie. I'm sorry. Maybe it wasn't. Sorry.
No worries. Go ahead, dear.
Hey, Anne-Marie,
Okay,
we got
I just wanted
about
to say-
we got about 5 minutes, Anne-Marie. That's about it.
Okay, guys. Thank you, Rick. Okay, go ahead, dear. Let's wrap up our comments. Go ahead.
I'll make this brief. I love the point Pixie brought up, because I look back at my upbringing before I was a witness, and the one thing me and my dad would do every Tuesday is go to the library, and I would just scour. And it didn't matter if it was a book about reptiles or history or anything in general. But that meant the world to me, because getting knowledge and reading books in and of itself might have one dynamic, because I do agree with what Solomon said when he said the reading of too many books can be in vain, but when you read them and you apply the knowledge and you start to teach yourself how to think, that to me is the introduction to becoming a functional human, because you start to learn how to look at life around you. And I just wanted to say, as much as some people might have an issue with people that are too learned, I love the fact that Pixie's very well read, been there, done that, and it's up to us to decipher that and think about how much value it means, instead of blaming someone else for maybe being too wordy or too knowledgeable, because what's wrong with that?
Exactly. Thank you so much for that excellent point, Chris. Thank you. Yes, please, hurry. Go ahead, sweetheart. We have about 3 minutes. Go ahead.
Okay. I have to remember that I came from a religion, the Catholic religion. I was born in it. It was absolutely bona fide, a real religion. And then when we were approached by the witnesses at the door, there were booksellers. It was the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. It was a publishing company. There wasn't a religion, for God's sakes, literally, and it wasn't. So I thought that was very strange, number one. And number two, it's so easy to think that we were part of a religion, and we were not. we were part of a corporation. We were part of a manipulative, exploitative corporation that knew how to use people for their benefit, for their profit. And I think sooner we keep that in mind, we won't try to justify the fact that, boy, they didn't teach us very good like God would want them to. It was a corporation. We would have been far better off in Montgomery Ward's corporation. They would have treated us better. We would have been more satisfied. We just have to remember they were a corporation, a book publishing company. Thanks.
Real estate investment and investment in stock market. Thank you so much for bringing that up, brother. I think there was one more person that wanted to comment. We have about a minute and a half left. Is there one more comment, please?
Go ahead. Me, Anne-Marie.
Go ahead, Susan.
If any one of you is struggling with your social skills and you need help, a book that I read that helped me tremendously, it's been on the bestseller list for almost 50 years. It's by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it's so good, and it really teaches you how to be a person with social skills, how to talk to people, how to act around people.
Well, it's a very good book, Susan. I can tell you that. I've read the book, and I'm sure a lot on this listening audience has as well. Hey, Anne-Marie, we're going to wrap it up there. Are you there with us?
Okay. I hope she could. What was the title one more time, please?
How to Win Friends. How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
How the wind influences people?
How to win, W-I-N, win.
Oh, okay, okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm sorry, guys. We got to wrap it up, and I want to thank everyone who volunteered and shared their points and experiences. Thank you all for coming in. We need to go to JW World News now. Thank you, Rick.
Well, thank you, Anne-Marie. I told you you'd get a lot of people calling in. That was a very good subject. So I really believe that people enjoyed that subject. I mean, by the amount of comments you got, it was really, really good. So anyways, thank you, Anne-Marie. You did a very, very good job. And I just want to thank all the people, too, that called in. That's so important to be able to call in. We're going to end this program here. I just want to make some announcements, though. We have more programming coming up tonight on the 6 screens. For the most part, we go all night long into the early hours of the morning, sometimes 6, 7 o'clock. And then we have 6 screens Sunday tomorrow. So why don't you listen in tonight? We got a number of programs. We've got JW World News coming up next. We've got at 9:30, we do a special program all about shunning in the Watchtower. You don't want to miss this program. It's a great program. We have a professor from a New York State University calling in, and he's working on getting legislation passed that could ban shunning. So by all means, listen to that program tonight, 9:30, right here on the 6 screens. And then at 11 o'clock, we go to Linda James. Linda James will be coming in from Southern California. She's on at 11 o'clock tonight, right after our special shunning program. So I do believe you're on there, Linda. Hopefully you are. You can hear me. So 11 o'clock tonight is when you will be coming on. All right, we're going to end this broadcast here. We're going to JW World News. Stay with us. If you're on the channel right now, just come right back in a couple minutes, and we'll be right back with our JW World News. So let's end this broadcast.